Majesty, you gotta watch this. I hope that you're doing all right. Welcome back. If it's your first time coming on here, I'd like to say you're welcome. Please do subscribe and join the family. So when we talk about these things, they just think that we're going crazy, okay? When you talk about the racism in health and the discrimination and the medical apartheid and everything, all that kind of line of stuff, they just say no, maybe we should stop talking about it. But even if we stop, these things don't seem to be going away, okay? So this doctor that you see here is a Zionist doctor, or should I say Jewish doctor. He came out on a podcast and said that if you do not align with his values, he's leaving you boshed. Like, likelihood is you not make it, that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering, is this a mistake? Like, he's in his head. What's going on here? In the video, you're also going to learn about this type of doctor, in like a certain story where a child was brought in with a gunshot wound, and he was like under anesthesia there, and then a doctor passes a comment, something like, I don't know why we're gonna stitch him up when after this he's gonna go back to the street and sell something, like, what is wrong? Anyway, you can make these things up, so let me roll the clip and then I'm gonna be back.
I don't want a patient who doesn't align with my values, because in general it's a relationship, and if you don't align, and it's not going to be a good outcome. No matter how good my surgery is, it's just not going to work.
Let me keep it all the way funky with you. When I go to the doctor, whether it's a dentist, optometrist, or I'm getting bladder surgery, I'm requesting or seeking out a black healthcare provider. And that's just what it is, what it has been, and what it's always going to be. I could spend hours unpacking how this surgeon just said, if you aren't a Zionist, the results of your surgery by my hands are TBD. I've heard people call black people dramatic for being afraid, weary, skeptical of doctors, hospitals, surgeons, the healthcare system as a whole, but I guarantee you there are thousands more like him.
I don't want a patient who doesn't align with my values, because
I wanted to come into this. I used to be a healthcare worker. I was licensed, but I retired. And from listening to that stitch, and even the commentator that was saying that he stick by his own people and do not want to deal with people like him because he knows there's a million of them, I'm going to tell you a story, and please pay attention to it. When I used to work at this institution, it was predominantly urban, okay, talking about the clientels, the patients that were coming in there. And I remember this incident, and that kind of turned my face on dealing with people like that particular doctor, or any doctor that is not my own, okay? Some of them are very racist, people that's like that doctor. The new and the old generation of those type of doctors, they always want to be in that field, but they don't know how to deal with the general public, and that's including minorities. I remember one time, it was an emergency, and we had to go into the OR. I had to do a procedure with that same doctor, but he was a resident at the time. The attendant was coming in, and the attendant was just as worse than them, because he allowed them to say anything they want to do and whatever. So we was in a group of nurses. There was a small amount of them that were Filipino, and there was a large group of people that was black, but it was mostly West Indian. And I think I was the only black American there, but come from West Indian descendant. A patient came in as a stat patient. It was a gunshot victim, and it was a young child. And apparently, what we heard from the story, instead of the doctor finding out exactly what happened, he comes out with his colleague right in front of the child who was under anesthesia. And he said, I don't understand why we're going to sit there and stitch him back up, but he's going to go on the street and sell the product again. And he said it so loud in front of everybody, and the resident was standing there, the attendant was standing there, and he did not correct him. I felt so sorry for that child because I want to know if he's going to really operate on this child properly. Okay? Then he said, oh, they never have insurance. He was referring us as black people never had insurance. And he was from that group. Okay? They're the first to say that we're anti-Semitic, but they're racist as hell. So when I heard everything that he said, and it was a whole bunch of us, the rest of the group kind of just like didn't really say anything. They just looked upon each other. Us in a collective, we wrote him up. We wrote all of them up. When it went to Central, they didn't do anything about it. We took it to the higher up. And because it's been ongoing. Another time, there was a lady, elderly lady. She was going for a procedure. And it looked like she was new to the country, so she didn't understand English. And every time when I used to look in the computer and see whatever they needed to do for the client, they would say alter status, status, meaning that the person has a mental problem. And I noticed they were doing that to a lot of minorities, that same group. So one day I asked the doctor, what is the sense of you coming to a level 1 trauma hospital that's minority and it's a city owned, and you're seeing people that look like us? Some of them come from different culture, but you guys are always saying something illiterate and saying something ignorant that you don't have no type of filter. So I said, there's something that called do no harm. He got mad and he wrote me up and I wrote him up because what he said. And then also he wrote up the lady and trying to say that she's crazy. I said, the lady's not crazy. She doesn't understand English. I said, English is her second language, just like you have a second language. Anyway, back to the story. That young man was shot because he was coming from the South and he was graduating from college and he went to see his grandmother and it was a holiday. So he was at the front porch and apparently bullets were shooting all over the place because they had a street, they had like a street party, a block party. And it landed him and it nearly died. He nearly died. But luckily he reached to the hospital as a destination. And as he did, they were able enough to recover him. So when they started to check his background and found out he was a straight A student and it was his freshman year in college and how he had straight A's and he was studying to become a doctor. Yeah, all of a sudden they kept their mouth shut because I took them all the way to the hearing. I did not care. And I said to them, you mustn't do no harm. And every time when they saw me, they always looked at me and never said anything. But when their people come to the hospital, half of the time, they don't even pay the hospital bill. And we have to give them the same treatment. And I believe in treating all patients when I used to be a civil servant in the health field. I'm now retired. I retired a long time ago, but I used to see how the way they used to be offensive every time when they were around people like our color. And I wanted to know why they became doctors. Even when they do dentistry too. They have a tendency of overcharging people, especially when they don't have a co-payment. I have interacted with multiple of them. So I said to myself, are you here to deal with patients for the general pop, or you just there to make money? And when they make a mistake, they want you to have their back. I never, okay? Because I believe that patients come first, okay? Because they are the ones, if you are a nurse, you have to be 10 toes standing before them. Because they used to lie on nurses and lie on techs, especially when they want to cover up themselves. And this is not a hate thing. This is not anti-bullying. This is not. If you come in the hospital environment and you see how some of them treat patients, especially if you go to a certain hospital that's in Long Island, they look at you sideways. They want to know what you're here for. Like, oh, you're there to visit them. And they take forever to diagnose you. Okay? That's why a lot of people are skeptical of being around in the hospital because of them. Because some of them are very racist. From my personal experience, they're very racist. And it's a lesson to learn. Because you hear how the way he was talking on that podcast, because there's a lot of them like that. And I'm glad that this gentleman had brought that topic up. I've been meaning to tell that topic many, many times. When you work with them, they think that you're supposed to be their secretary. And they like to downgrade you. Yes. And they're very rude. But they always come into the urban place to do their practice. Okay? But when you go to their sites, they don't want to. They don't want to tend to you. They only want to tend to their own. I find some of them to be the most racist people ever, but they're the first ones that will come and say, "No, you're racist and you're anti this." But you see how the way they act in the hospital, especially in the urban hospital, and even hospitals that's affiliated with them.
You know, I'm just out here wondering, why hasn't this man's license been taken? Because this is public place, and why does he get the guts to be here and talk about, if you do not share or align with my beliefs, I'm botching you? Do we choose to be patient and be attended by a certain doctor because of a certain belief that we have? How he gotta say that you have to have a relationship? See, I'm coming in as a person, new person, I do not know you. How do you establish a relationship with me? Do you gotta ask me, what if I'm in coma? Do you have to ask me what beliefs I have, or like, guys, I'm my head, like, I'm trying to bring myself to try and understand this man, but I think there's no room for that at this point. And then when black people are skeptical about being treated by such a person of his likeness or likelihoodness, I don't know what kind of English to use at this point, they think that we are mad, they think that we are crazy, when it's all a societal consequence with all these things that have been said and being done for years. Okay, I also can't seem to wrap my head around the fact that that doctor was talking about somebody who's on a theater bed that he's already regretting about stitching him up because he's gonna go back to the street. Like, where do these guys go there make their money from? I'm so glad that that sister took it upon herself to make sure that everything was done and correct. And then you come in the face of a straight A student, like, that's a life that you're about to waste right there. This man, this boy meant well that he also wanted to become a doctor so he can treat people. A doctor like him, except that he's being a bad example. He's being not the doctor that people expect from him, because you're not going to ask for a relationship from me when I'm just a patient. For God's sake, you people even promise you have these things that you say when you're becoming doctors and anything, and then here you are practicing discrimination. His license should be taken, this guy. It should be taken away from him. I am scared for the people that are found in his presence, for sure. So guys, let me know if you have encountered any kind of artist people in health, be it whichever kind that you came across, and what kind of experience that was, and what do you think about this whole kind of outright behavior. He's all straight up and talking about, you don't share my beliefs, I'm down with you. Like, I'm botching you straight up. I don't know how you feel about this. Please do make comment below, and do subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed, because I do have more for you.